I've got to have the whole system. You know, there's a lot of talk in golf instruction right now. It's like, oh, is it the shoulders? Is it the hips? Is it the legs? Is it the... Here's the answer. It's everything. I can't compartmentalize. I can't isolate. It's a motion. You know, everything happens together. If you want to hit it as far as you possibly can, you've got to blend all this stuff together. Hey everyone, in this video we're going to talk about how to increase your club head speed in golf. We're going to talk about actually swinging shorter and slower to go faster. Yeah, mind blown. Shorter and slower to go faster. But before we get to that, I've really enjoyed bringing this free content to you, and my YouTube community, it's growing. And I'm excited about that, and I want it to continue to grow, and you can help me with that. And the way you can do it is by smashing that like button, subscribing to my YouTube channel, which just alerts you when I have new videos available for you to watch, and last but not least, comment. And these things help in more ways than you know. So I'm sure I have your attention after that opener, and I have some explaining to do. And first thing that I want to go over is there are a few variables that go into club head speed. One very important variable would be length of arc, so how far back I swing this club. And those of you who've watched other videos, seen my articles in Golf Magazine, I've talked about one way to increase club head speed is getting that club head back as far as you can. So length of arc, certainly one way we can do it. There's another variable called width of arc. So that's keeping the hands out away from me, and creating tremendous width. The grip is far away from me, and that too can yield quite a bit of club head speed and therefore distance. And if we could blend the two together, I would say that's probably the holy grail. If I could have length of arc and width of arc and maximize that due to my flexibility and my turn, ball go far. We can see Bryson DeChambeau, and you know, he's a good example of that. Pretty long swing with tremendous amount of width. Now, what I'm going to focus on today is somebody who tends to be really long and kind of a funny looking top of back swing. You know, you have a long swing, your arm structure is not very good, the club is out of position, your arms are out of position, and therefore you have a very hard time sequencing the golf swing on the downswing. So the ones that I've shot before about lengthening your swing were really geared more towards people, and I see this a lot in Naples, Florida, my demographic, a retired demographic, where people start to, you know, their game starts falling apart, so they start shortening their golf swing. And they come to me and I say, hey, let's get this going, let's get you swinging back further, let's increase that turn. And I get why they shorten it. You know, they're out playing with friends, they don't want to embarrass themselves, and they just they know if they shorten it, they can get it around the golf course. And they come back to me and I just get them moving again, is the statement that I always say on my lesson tee. Is a lot of students, I just get them moving again, and that's how they start hitting at the distance that they should be and hitting it better contact, etc. So all those videos were focused more towards that, the short swinger. The one that we're going to talk about today is geared a little bit more towards the longer swinger that's really out of position. And I said a word earlier that I want to delve into a little bit more, and that word is sequencing. So you see these people who have very long swings and maybe their arms are out of position. You can see my elbows are bent, and as I do that, you can see how the club kind of navigates behind my body. My hands get behind my head. I don't have great flexibility, but I'm doing the best I can to show that. And from here, you know, I have a wonderful turn, I have a wonderful lateral move back to the target, and you can see, I'll show you down the line in just a second, the club and my arms never really get back out in front of my body, and so I'm not optimizing my club head speed, I'm not optimizing my distance. And from down the line, again, I'll get in as funky a position as I can create here, and I start my downswing, and hey, I'm really good at turning and creating some lateral shift towards the target in the downswing, and club gets behind me, my arms get behind me, I have contact issues, I'm not optimizing my distance. So what's a way that I can optimize my distance if that's who I am? And before I get into that, some of you might say, hey, that looks like Matt Wolff. And I would agree with that. You know, he's got obviously a very interesting position at the top of the backswing, but if we look at him halfway down or 3/4 of the way down in his downswing, he's matched up his sequencing and he looks like any tour player out there. And you got to remember, he's a superior athlete. You know, he's hit billions of balls and he's trained that motion, and so it works for him. And students who come to me, I don't shorten everybody's swing that's long, and I don't lengthen everybody's swing that's short. It has to do with, can they sequence it? If they can sequence it, most of the time they're good players when they get to me because they can sequence whatever they're doing. But that's the biggest question is, hey, are they sequencing? If they're not, then we've got to work on something. If it's too long, we got to shorten it. And if it's too short, we got to lengthen it and help get that sequencing where it needs to be. All right. So the next thing I want to go over, we know that that's us, okay? I'm out of position. I've got a funny top of position. The club is way too far back. I'm definitely out of sequence. I can feel it. I can see it when I video my swing, whatever the case may be. What are some steps I can take to start to correct this? And what I would have you do is I would have you start indoor, in front of a mirror. If you could get in a hitting bay, some of you have it in your home, but I would have you mirror, preferably in front and behind if you're in a hitting bay, and just hitting into a net. And what you're working on is really three things. There's three checkpoints. Is I'm going to be shorter, I'm going to be wider, okay, and I'm going to have really good arm structure so you can see my elbows are together. And I'll do this from down the line. So the three checkpoints again are, I'm going to be wider, so the width of arc, that's how we're creating speed here. My swing is going to be shorter because I got to keep it sequenced, and my arm structure is really good. Because if I was short and wide but I had poor arm structure, I'm going to have the same issue where I'm not going to be able to sequence it and I'm not going to be able to maximize my club head speed from there. All right, so we get in front of a mirror, you look at it face on, and you're checking these positions, and it looks good. And how does this help? You know, let's talk about that for a second. How does this help? How does this sequence me better? Well, when I'm out of position, so I've got this really long swing, my arm structure is out of position, the length of my swing is out of position, and I start to swing down. As I mentioned earlier, my arms in the club get caught behind me, the stuck position that Tiger made so famous with his words and talking about how he got stuck. When I go shorter and I go wider and that arm structure is really good, you can see how the club, my hands, my arms stay in front of my chest. So I'm sequencing that arm swing, that club, and my body turn together, which is going to definitely increase your club head speed and help you to increase your distance and optimize that club head speed. So I would start inside and I would do some of that. The next thing that I would do is I would bring it out to the range, and I would have plenty of rehearsal swings in between. You know, I'd do 1 or 2 rehearsal swings, checking, it's shorter, it's wider, my arm structure is good, and then work on really feeling that sequencing better. And when I felt like I was doing better with it and it felt better to me, then I would start to incorporate the golf ball. So I would put the ball up on a tee because I don't want to worry about contact. So put it up on a tee, pretty high on the tee, make it as easy for yourself as you can. And what I would start with, I call them stop and go drills. So I'm going to go to the top, and I'm going to make sure everything is where I want it. And when we talk about arm structure and symmetry in the golf swing, notice that it is short, it is wide, my arm structure is good, but my hands are in front of my chest. They're not behind my chest, and they're not way out in front of my chest. And so from here, again, as I make a good move back to the golf ball, everything is in sequence. So I would start with some stop and go, just take it to the top, look at it, make sure it's in a good position, and then go ahead and swing through, just tap it off the tee. That ball's probably going 50, 60 yards. It's not going really far. We'll do it one more time. You know, my focus is I'm going to stay shorter, wider, and have great arm structure with the hands in front of my chest. And this is going to help my speed because it's going to marry my sequencing together. So we're short, wide, good arm structure, tap. And I would do that until I felt really good with what I was doing. I had a really good feel for it. And phase 1 would be inside, in front of a mirror, in a hitting bay, whatever. Phase 2 would be on the driving range, on a tee, doing the stop and go drill. And then phase 3, the final phase, I would make some real swings. Incorporating this, shorter, wider, hands in front of me, good arm structure, just plugging these variables together and then hitting the best shot I can. Now I've got it on a tee for now, and you know, I struggle with this in my swing. Those of you who've watched a lot of my videos, you see that at times my swing can get a little long, it can get a little past parallel, especially with the driver, and so I do struggle with sequencing of my golf swing at times. And so this is a great drill for me to work on, and I do work on it, but I want to start off a tee and make sure that I can make a full swing off a tee before I go to the ground. And that would probably be the 4th phase. It's like, all right, I'm going to hit some balls off the ground, incorporating all this stuff together. But from a drill standpoint, inside in front of a mirror, outside on the range, stop and go, and then a full swing here off the tee. So very short arm swing, okay, and we'll talk about that in just a second, but very wide. So short arm swing, nice and wide, and that was hit really solid. I could really feel my sequencing, the body turn, my lateral shift, the arms, the club, everything coming together. Now I want to talk about something that you need to watch as you go through these drills, whether you're inside on the range doing the stop and go or executing real swings. And a lot of times when I work on this with students, and then I'm going to share a story with you. When I'm working on this with students, what they'll do is say, okay, well, he wants me to have a shorter arm swing. And so they'll not swing their arms as much, and it's going to probably feel like half to 3/4 of a swing relative to the swing that you were using prior to doing all this. But what they'll do is they'll shorten their arm swing, but notice how I've shortened my turn. I haven't created a 90-degree turn with my shoulders. So one thing that's very important, and this is where the width aspect comes into play, is I'm shortening because I'm taking away length of arc. So I've got to pick up distance somehow, so I'm increasing width of arc. I'm pushing my hands away from me, but notice I'm still getting a full turn as I do that. To me, Bryson DeChambeau would be a great example of blending all these things together, where, you know, he's very wide and very long. I wouldn't say very long, but has a longer swing. It's not a wide, short swing. It's a wide, long swing. And I mean, look at what he's doing. I mean, he's smashing club head speed records and distance records. I mean, it's awesome to see what he's been able to put together. So the point here is, if we shorten the arm swing, we've got to increase the width, and we've got to make sure that my back and my butt are still to the target, that I'm creating a full turn. And then as my sequencing's good, you can see how that's going to plug a lot of motion and speed together to optimize club head speed. So I said I'd share a story. I had a gentleman here a few years ago, and I shot a TrackMan screencast about this you can find on my YouTube channel, and we actually got him going faster by going slower, and I'll explain this. So he came to me and he had the shortest, fastest swing you've ever seen. It was like, anybody who saw it would say, man, that is a short, fast swing by far. And so what we started doing is I started doing some of the stop and go drills where we were lengthening the swing just a little bit, increasing his turn and hitting, I call it full swing for short distance. So for me, I have an 8-iron, so 160 club. I would be making full swings with my 8-iron, working on hitting it just 100 yards. And as we were doing that, and things were getting better, you know, his contact was getting better, he was starting to understand his golf swing a little bit more, and he gave me one of those really short, fast swings right in the middle of it. And so I had my TrackMan set up, and at that time I didn't show club head speed because everybody thinks they swing it faster than they do. So I would just hide that parameter so we wouldn't have to have that conversation. But when he made that faster swing, I was curious, or what appeared to be a faster swing, I was curious, like, okay, how much faster is that? And he gained 2 miles per hour by making that shorter, it felt powerful to him, that's why he did it, but that shorter, faster, more powerful, if you want to call it that, swing. And so he came back and I showed him and he's like, so when I do that, I only gain a mile or 2 per hour. And I said, exactly. And so we really started to believe in, if I go wider and I go softer or slower, you know, was the words that we were using, I'm going to actually increase my club head speed and I'm going to go further. So it's like, all right, mind blown. How does that happen? You know, you're shortening his swing, you're slowing it down, but he's increasing his club head speed and the ball's going further. And it's the word that you've heard me say many times during this video, it improved his sequencing. So when he was making that short, quick swing, it was just an arm swing. He wasn't blending any torso or leg turn. It was just purely arms and club, and I can only generate so much speed with my shoulders. I've got to have the whole system. You know, there's a lot of talk in golf instruction right now. It's like, oh, is it the shoulders? Is it the hips? Is it the legs? Is it the... Here's the answer. It's everything. I can't compartmentalize. I can't isolate. It's a motion. You know, everything happens together. If you want to hit it as far as you possibly can, you've got to blend all this stuff together. So, back to my story, as we started to shorten him and he started to believe in it, what we saw is we saw an increase with his driver of 10 miles per hour by him, quote unquote, swinging slower. In his mind, he felt like he was swinging, you know, wider, slower, but the yield or the result was much more club head speed, much more distance. So if you're somebody who tends to kind of overswing, get out of position, you know your sequencing is off, then work on these drills. I know it'll improve. So now you know how to increase your club head speed in golf. We talked about going shorter and wider and slower to increase your club head speed, which is mind-blowing, but you understand why it works now. And I have 2 more videos here right now that'll continue to help you improve your game. And remember, please like, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and comment.